Yeah, no, I was worried about that.
Hey, Ralph. You guys are real lawyers, like. Other than noting in the audible.
You will be today, believe me.
Okay.
So, there's a lot of, well, they made it, even more. There were like minimum of hundreds. So, there's some people that think they have some legal knowledge. They're not a sophisticated people. They are not pardon lawyers or anything like that. They're more like, but there's a mix. There's a lot of people. But that's not just the thing. It's just the thing. You feel intimidated by their legal knowledge. They can be intimidated. There were a lot of Asian people here. A lot of people were here yesterday. Oh, now there's more. It's trying to think of who. Yeah, last week. Yeah, but there were, even at 1 o'clock in the morning, there were at the minimum. So now, no, there were, few. Yeah. One almost died for me. I didn't even know. But again, the point wasn't just about the lawyers, it's just that they're not here. We can say anything we want. Yeah, but it depends on the subject. Whether I... Oh, yeah. Simple. No, former president. But, civil rights it's not great, but a long time activist in their career. For myself, for the government. Oh, Michigan government. Say over 100 if you're over 100 all night. In shift, they would come in and go in as they were. Well, smooth is a relative word. If I was going to the public, I thought you were trying to talk more. But people were. No. There's been aggressive conduct. They want to keep most of these out. A variety. Wide variety. I know it's giving tributes to the they want our aggression in challenge to that would be a good answer. But I just got I got back. I think they have. I left it like 2. No, we have the phone. Yeah, no, the phone related to the ballot of the poll. Once the polls closed, that rule went out because you couldn't release information before the poll. At what? But you can't do what? Oh no, you can't take pictures, but you can have. You literally could not have your vote. So, no, you can't go over the ballot and take pictures. But also as far as
that every vote counts. and that has been the promise of democracy since 1787, and it's still the promise of democracy, and I intend here in Pennsylvania to make sure we keep that promise. So, as I said, counties continue to report results, and again, these results are coming in more slowly than they have in the past, so we have to be patient, but confident that these votes are going to be counted. They're going to be counted accurately, and they will be counted fully. The delay that we're seeing is a sign that the system is working. This is a new system. We went into effect with Act 77 last year, and there are 3 million millions of mail-in ballots that are being counted. And that takes longer than the way we used to do it with the stand-in, in-person voting. So we may not know the results even today, but the most important thing is that we have accurate results. Again, even if that takes a little longer than we're used to. Make no mistake, our democracy is being tested in this election. This is a stress test of the ideals upon which this country was founded. And the basic rule of one person, one vote, that still carries, and it has to carry here. Our democracy has withstood challenges before, and for over 200 years we have upheld and strengthened our commitment to basic fairness and due process. And I have full faith that we will similarly meet this moment, and I will do everything within my power to ensure that the results are fair and that every vote is counted. Pennsylvania will have a fair election, and that election will be free of outside influences. I will vigorously, and we all will vigorously defend against any attempt to attack that vote in Pennsylvania. And every Pennsylvanian can have confidence in the outcome of this election due to the diligence of the county election officials and the hard work of Secretary Bookvar and her folks at the Pennsylvania Department of State. So thank you again to all Pennsylvanians who voted. Rest assured your vote will be counted. If it hasn't already been counted, your vote will make a difference in this election. This is the way we elect our officials. This is the way we hire the people who are our public servants. It's a promise that we give to all Pennsylvanians, all Americans, that their vote counts, and I intend to keep that promise here in Pennsylvania. Now I'm proud to turn this over to Secretary of State Kathy Bookvar. Sorry.
That's it. Good morning. So I want to echo some of what Governor Wolf said about once again thanking all the tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of election workers that were and are still involved in the process of enabling this great democracy in Pennsylvania and across the nation. The work they have done and continue to do is just tremendous. And, we've been talking, Department of State folks were, at our operations center, 4:30 in the morning, went to take a shower, and we're back within a couple hours of that. So I've been working around the clock, as are many of the counties, and we've been talking about yesterday again and how incredibly smooth. It's one of the smoothest, least issues presidential elections than I've seen in any time that I could possibly remember. And I've been in and around elections for a long time as a voting rights lawyer and a poll worker. This was incredibly smooth, and that's a huge credit to all the election workers, both at the state level and at the local level, as well as our state partners like PEMA and Office of Homeland Security, Department of Homeland Security, who made sure that all those things that people were worried about, whether it was voter intimidation or issues at the polls, really could not have gone more smoothly in the middle of a global pandemic with all the voting reform changes that we saw from Act 77 and Act 12. So that's huge kudos to everybody involved. Also, we are exactly where we said we would be. So we said it was going to take some time to count the mail ballots, and we are approaching 50% of the mail ballots counted, which is great. As you know, you can go to our Election Night Returns website and the supplemental dashboard to get the greater details on that. But there are still millions of ballots left to be counted. So the counties are working incredibly hard. You're going to see a lot of updates in the next couple of hours and throughout the day. We have been, there were a number of counties that made some major additions in the wee hours in the morning. So if you checked kind of early on this morning, you may want to check again because there's already been more ballots accounted for on our dashboard. Again, this is a process. We've got, somewhere, I don't know what the totals are going to end up at, but somewhere between 2.5 and 3 million ballots. And as I've said many times, we had 260,000 ballots cast by mail in 2016. So we will be at 10 times the number of mail ballots, and the counties are already approaching 50% done. So I urge everybody to remain patient. As Governor Wolf said, we are going to accurately count every single ballot. The vote count, as I've said many times, is never done on the day of election night, and the counties are doing this accurately and then accurately as quickly as they possibly can. And again, I'll also just remind everyone, military and overseas ballots are not due until a week after Election Day. So next Tuesday is the deadline for military and overseas voters to cast their ballots. And we want to make sure that not only every civilian absentee and mail-in valid voter is counted, but also that every man and woman who are serving our country, that their votes are counted. So thank you, and we are happy to take questions. Should I stay?
Sure. I'm sure you want to talk to Kathy. Any questions? Dennis?
Can you tell us where we stand right now and what you know of challenges, legal challenges from the Trump administration, and how are you preparing to deal with those?
So I think, basically what that's been publicly reported, that's really all we have at this point. So, and I can't talk about active litigation, unfortunately. So you could, but as things are filed, of course, those will be publicly accessible.
Do you have attorneys that are going to handle that, or are you bringing in somebody from the outside, and who would that be?
We have a mix of, what we've been doing all along with all the litigation that's been flying this year is we have a mix of in-house and outside counsel. Plus the Attorney General is also representing us in a number of these things. So there's been a great team. I have to say the attorneys, I'm just going to give a shout out to the legal team in the Department of State who have been really put to work this year, and they are amazing. So Tim and Kat and team, thank you. But we also have tremendous teams of outside counsel who have been involved in all of this. And as the governor said, we will make sure that every vote is counted. Every eligible voter has the right to cast their vote.
So how many counties are handling ballots that are coming in Tuesday, Thursday, Friday? How are they handling that? And is each county setting them aside? How is each county doing it?
So you can go online to see our guidance, and then last night we also gave sort of more technical guidance to the counties, which we can forward to you. It lays out the process. So you're talking about the late arriving ballots. So everything's going to be segregated. I'm not sure if you were here yesterday, but all those ballots will be segregated, but they will be counted, and the counties have been given detailed instructions, which again you could find in those guidances to walk them through how to segregate those races, those ballots. Sorry.
Can you talk about the order in which those things will be counted? I mean, is that a county by county decision? Can we expect to see those numbers being already reflected, or is that something they would get to later in the process?
Yeah, they'll get to, so basically it's going to depend, right? There's some counties that are already done counting their mail-in ballots received before 8 p.m., so those are going to start sooner, but they won't be reflected on the website. They won't be like intermingled in the website as you see it now. They will be segregated. So, but it is going to vary from county to county when they start because they're working on the other ones first.
How it will be reflected on the website, though? I'm unclear on that.
Well, I think stay tuned on that. Yes.
So on those segregated ballots, there were 500,000 ballots issued that hadn't been cast as of yesterday.
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
Sorry, there were 500,000 mail ballots issued that hadn't been cast as of yesterday. is there a way for the state to determine how many of those 500,000 people chose to vote in person instead, or do we need to operate under the assumption that all 500,000 could come in before Friday?
So all that will be trackable, but we won't have it today. So basically between provisional ballots and the poll books, and then of course the mail-in ballots, as you all know, like only one vote can be counted for any voter. So you'll be able to see all of that, but it will take some time for that data to be quantified. Yes, sir.
Last night, I think your comment was that you didn't know how many mail-in ballots had arrived yesterday, right? Do we know yet how many ballots arrived yesterday? What is the number of mail-in ballots?
I don't have that with me this morning, but check on the dashboard, and that will be updated throughout the day. Yeah, sorry. Jan?
Representative Benninghoff keeps raising this point about how ballots that arrived yesterday that can still be counted may not have a legible postmark on them, and raising questions about whether or not they should be counted or not. And he said it's because of the prepaid envelopes that the state provided. I was wondering if you could speak to that.
Sure. So I'm not sure, he may be confusing. So anything that arrived yesterday, it doesn't matter whether it's postmarked or not. Anything that arrived yesterday is a valid vote. That's what Pennsylvania law has always been, right? So talking about the late arriving ballots. So the postmark, first of all, the way we did prepaid postage in Pennsylvania is we went to the counties where they are. So if they wanted it to be through their business reply mail, USPS permit, we did it that way. If they wanted to literally have us reimburse them for stamps or metered postage, we did it however they want. So some of them are not even, and I don't remember how many, but we could get you that information, how many counties are using business reply mail. But those are still postmarked. They have timing marks, they are date stamped, they are still trackable by date. So it's a tiny fraction of any of those things, whether it's business reply mail or regular mail. I mean, we've all had that situation where you get a letter and it's not postmarked. It's rare, right? Same for business reply mail. They do what's called a timing mark, so that's just, it's not accurate. They're all stamped.
There is no mark on it. If it is one of those rare occasions, would it be counted?
So under the current Pennsylvania Supreme Court decision, which is currently the law, yes, as long as there's no affirmative evidence that it was postmarked after November 3rd, as long as it's received by November 6th at 5 p.m., it will be counted. Yes.
It's my understanding that the state's website is showing 18 counties with 0% mail-in ballots counted. Is that accurate? Do you have any insight into that?
So, what I would suggest, sometimes counties are uploading on their own websites and haven't transmitted the file to the Department of State because, they have their own local races. So I urge you, if you see any, and this is what we're going to be doing throughout the day, go to the county website. You should always do that. It's a great way to double check. But we're going to be following up with all those counties to say, hey, make sure you get us the files. Some of them, this year, because for the first time, we had a website that was going to itemize the mail-in ballots from the in-person ballots from the provisionals. Some of the counties, when they uploaded the results, it merged the two types into one, and that was just, they formatted it wrong. So we're working through that to make sure that the actual attribution of those ballots are right.
Notice that there's a larger than expected number of counties that have reported.
Yeah, it doesn't mean that they haven't counted. It may just mean that it's just not uploaded to the Department of State website yet. So I do urge you to check the county websites and see if that's available on their website.
Last thing, I'm sorry, if I can just double back on something. If I heard you correctly in your introductory remarks, it was between 2.5 and 3 million mail-in ballots. Is that, and you're roughly 50%? If you could speak with as much specificity as possible regarding that, that would be helpful.
Well, I think, the numbers that I gave yesterday, it was just under 2.6 million, as I recall. But again, I'm not sure what has additionally come in. But so as of yesterday, at some point, it was just under 2.6 million that had been cast. And that's when I think I said it was 83% or something like that. So we can get back to you. Again, go on the website. You'll have that information available to you. I just don't have it at my fingertips today.
Okay.
Yes.
Can you tell us how many mail-in ballots are outstanding on a county-by-county breakdown, or is that also on the website?
It's on the website. Yep. So if you go to the regular ENR reporting website, it also tells you that you can click on the supplemental dashboard. And you click on that, it breaks down. There's a tab for mail ballots that breaks it down by county, how many have been cast, how many have been counted, and how many are remaining. There's a tab for in-person precincts reporting, broken down by county, so it'll tell you how many precincts are in each county, how many are fully reported. There's a tab for provisional ballots, but you won't see those numbers yet.
Kathy, I think we have a question.
Okay. Okay, thank you. No?
Oh, you didn't.
Oh.
I want to cite Lancaster County because what they're saying is that if they count anything that you're authorizing them to segregate, they won't be able to go back if there's some ruling and remove those counts. What's your response to that?
It's not accurate. And again, we sent an email to the counties yesterday. We spoke, I think I said this yesterday, we spoke to all of the voting system vendors. It is absolutely feasible, not even challenging. I mean, there are different ways to do it. You can use different machines, you can use different memory sticks, you can absolutely segregate them. That's not going to be a problem. So we reached out to, we sent this email to the counties, giving them instructions, advising them to talk directly to their voting system vendors.
What if they do if they don't comply, if they don't count?
We'll cross that bridge when we get there. I expect them all to comply. All right? Thank you.
me start by expressing again what I did last night, my overwhelming gratitude for the support of the people of this great state. It's been the honor of my life to have been able to represent them for as long as I have. And the size of the victory obviously was gratifying as well. You can imagine when I started out, I never imagined I would be able to carry 117 or 120 counties and win by 20 points. So it was a statement by the people of Kentucky. I think that they like having someone from our state be able to help set the national agenda and to look out for Middle America and for Kentucky. Beyond my race, as all we know, we picked up 13 seats in the State House, 2 seats in the State Senate, and I think even more significant, given the challenges Republicans have had in recent years in the suburbs, won back 2 seats here in Jefferson County that were lost 2 years ago in suburban eastern Jefferson County. Ken Fleming and Jason Davis won. Well, Jason had actually survived last time and won again. Ken Fleming won his old seat back. So I think we're very much aware of the challenges that we have in the suburbs across America. The other thing that's been a Republican challenge really for a number of years, and particularly in recent years, is the gender gap. We haven't totally broken it down, but at one point, at least in our tracking, I was ahead among women in Kentucky, and I think that must have been the case given the size of the margin. So it was a very gratifying victory for our side in Kentucky and for the opportunity to continue to serve our people and to set the agenda at the national stage. Now, I know what's on your minds. I don't know whether I'm going to be the defensive coordinator or the offensive coordinator as we speak. I can tell you the latest that I know, which is not definitive. We're in a pretty good position in North Carolina, but not able yet to declare victory. In Maine, they have an unusual situation in which if either candidate fails to get to 50, they go back and apply something called rank order voting. In other words, you put down your second choice, and then they start adding second choices. As of the moment, Senator Collins is over 50. If that were to be sustained until they finish, she would win without going to rank order voting. So it's not a runoff, but you start counting your second choice if neither candidate reaches 50. In Georgia, the only state in the union that requires you to get 50% in the general election, Senator Perdue is ahead, but it's not clear yet whether he will win without having a runoff. And of course, we have another runoff in Georgia anyway, because the other Georgia seat is an open seat, and under Georgia law, the way open seats are done is like a jungle primary. Everybody runs, and if anybody doesn't get 50, the top 2 have a runoff. And so in the other one, we know there will be another race January the 6th in the other Georgia Senate race. So that's the latest on the control of the Senate, and I'm sure you want to ask about other things. So let me, at this point, throw it open and see where you want to go.
Yeah. President Trump is continuing to cast doubt on the legitimacy of mail-in ballots in the middle of this pandemic. Is that the position of the Republican Party, that these votes that are still being counted are somehow illegitimate?
Well, I think we've talked about this before, but how you vote is determined at the state level, not in Washington. Every state does it differently. We did it differently this year, under an agreement between the governor and the Secretary of State. And our job as candidates to adapt to however they want to conduct the vote, and there's no question there were a greater number of states doing more both early and absentee voting this year because of the coronavirus. So we have to adapt to whatever the rules are in given states. It's not up to the federal government to determine how that's done.
But he's talking about duking this out in the courts. He is basically saying that these votes should not be counted. Do you agree with that?
Well, as you know, I don't just sort of engage in random observations about those comments. I can give you my point of view, and I might, if you're talking the presidential election, I think this underscores the beauty of the Electoral College. You know, everybody's always taking shots at the Electoral College. Imagine if you did not have the Electoral College and you had a close election in the popular vote count. When would the litigation ever stop? But the Electoral College guarantees that you have finality in 50 separate places. 50 separate places you get to a final outcome. We saw under the Electoral College in 2000, close election in one state created a 5-week challenge to get the outcome in the Bush versus Gore decision. So we ought to be grateful for the Electoral College in a close presidential election like this. There will be finality reached in 50 separate places. It may take a while for the voting to finish, and both sides will probably be lawyered up if it's a close election. That's happened before and could well happen this time. Yeah. No, I'm not, because the Democrats have got lawyers out there already. I mean, looking at the Senate, both sides are lawyered up in Georgia, North Carolina, Maine, both sides. Going to court is the way we resolve uncertainty in our country. So no, I'm not troubled at all by the president suggesting that, because the other side's already doing it too. And you can anticipate in close elections, both sides will be lawyered up and we'll end up in court. It's happened over and over and over again, nothing unusual. I'm having a hard time understanding you. Well, it's not unusual for people to claim they won the election. I can think of that happening on numerous occasions, but claiming you won the election is different from finishing the counting. And what we're going to see here in the next few days, both in the Senate races and in the presidential race, is each state will ultimately get to a final outcome. And you should not be shocked that both sides are going to have lawyers there, both in these close Senate races and in the presidential contest. But Daniel, the answer is, I don't want to be disrespectful, but I've already answered it. The courts will decide disputes. That's the way we do it in this country. Having close, disputed elections is not unusual. It happens all the time. So I don't think the president should be criticized for suggesting he may have some lawyers, because the other guys are certainly already doing that. And in a close election, you could anticipate in some of these states you're going to end up in court. It's the American way. Yeah. Well, I'm not sure whether I'll need to or not. We don't know who won the presidential race yet. We'll see what the American people decide they want their government to be. I don't know whether I'm going to be the majority leader or the minority leader. As I've told you, I've been both. The majority is better. And but we're awaiting the judgment of the American people. Now, on the Senate, there is a chance we will know by the end of the day. I'm told we're more likely to get a definitive answer, and this could be incorrect, by the way, but I'm told we're more likely to get a definitive answer in North Carolina and Maine by the end of the day than we might be able to get a final answer in Michigan, or whether or not we're going to have 2 runoffs in Georgia instead of 1. Well, voter behavior is obviously impacted by the campaigns that you put on, and we tried to make as an aggressive argument as we could that my opponent was pretty much in line with where Democrats are nationally on every issue. And you heard me say over and over again that that's certainly not where I am, and that I'd allow Kentucky to punch above its weight. So I think it was a pretty clear choice for the people of Kentucky, and I'm glad they decided that our arguments were better than hers. It's been an amazing transformation over my time in the Senate. When I first ran, and by the way, I won by 1 vote a precinct in 1984. If you drew a line from Bowling Green to Owensboro, there wasn't a single Republican state representative or state senator in all of that area of Kentucky, not one. Today, there's not a single Democrat. And after yesterday's election, that could almost be said all over Kentucky, except for our 3 largest counties, Jefferson, Fayette, and Franklin. Eastern Kentucky did a complete transformation. I think that's a legacy of President Obama's war on coal, and then the popularity of the current president added on to that has flipped counties that I used to get 40% if I was lucky in, to getting 60 and 70%. So, yeah, I think Kentucky's undergone a political transformation. It was happening, but really speeded up after Obama and Trump. And the last indicator is registration. 2.5 to 1 Democrat 36 years ago, almost even now. Registration is the last thing to change. Change your voting behavior before you change your registration. Yeah. I agree. I'm disturbed by 2 things that I think we need to do better nationally. Number 1, my hat's off to them for Act Blue. I think it is an incredibly effective model to reach out and to a lot of small donors and pull them together and target them in a particular direction. We were way behind on that model. We set up Win Red last year. Some of us did pretty well. I, for example, had over 1 million donors. Average donation, $35. But we are behind overall in this business of online fundraising, which harnesses small donors, which I think is a terrific model. So that's something we need to do better. Secondly, I'm disturbed by the loss of support in the suburbs nationwide. We saw it here. Although I must say, we did win 2 seats, 1 back and 1 kept in the suburbs of this county. Whatever slide we witnessed last year in northern Kentucky, I think I reversed that yesterday, so I think that turned out well from my point of view. But yeah, I think if you look at our situation, Republican situation nationally, I think we need to win back the suburbs. We need to do better with college-educated voters than we're doing lately, and we need to do better with women. So nothing's perfect. We had overall, I think, a better election than most people thought we were going to have. across the country. But yeah, we have improvement we need to make. Well, you could argue they have the same problem. You know, why they're getting crushed in rural and small towns. These trends come and go, and if you're smart about it, you try to correct your flaws. And those are things that I think we ought to improve on. Yeah, as I've said repeatedly in the last few months, we need another rescue package. The Senate goes back in session next Monday. Hopefully the partisan passions that prevented us from doing another rescue package will subside with the election. And I think we need to do it, and I think we need to do it before the end of the year. As you noticed, we had some big differences about what to do. The Speaker laid out a $2.5 trillion package with all kinds of things that I felt were simply unrelated to the subject. I laid on the Senate floor, not once, but twice, $500 billion. We can all remember when that was a lot of money, targeting the school situation, the need to replenish the PPP small loan program, which has been an enormous success. 50,000 Kentucky businesses drew down $5.2 billion. Huge success. They need to be replenished. And we need another round for hospitals because clearly the coronavirus is not gone. In fact, we've got it worse now than we had it in the spring, I believe, and I think that's true in a lot of other states. So I think that's job one when we get back, hopefully with a more cooperative situation than we had. And we also need to fund the government. And the Speaker and I agree that we ought to do an omnibus appropriation bill and do it in December, no matter who wins the election. It's a basic function of government that we haven't handled very well in recent years, and we need to do that. So we have two big things to do here before the end of the year, and it won't surprise you to know there's some more judges to do. Won't surprise any of you. And we're going to continue to confirm lifetime appointments to the courts as well. Well, we've already sent Louisville, I believe, I'm going to tell you, the figure's $137 million or something like that. Yeah. We did $150 billion for state and local government in the CARES Act, which basically was written by myself and my team. And it's a possibility that we will do more for state and local government. Many state and local governments are doing very well. So what happened as a result of that state and local plug that we put in the CARES Act is some states are flush, others aren't. And we need to look at the formula. If we do that again, we need to look at the formula and make sure there's a real need there. And also we need to make sure we're not basically allowing state and local governments to cover up or cover over pre-existing problems like pension problems and other problems that they've created for themselves. And so it's not quite as simple as it sounds. This is a big item for the Democrats, as you can imagine, and they're still going to control the House, and so we'll have to reach some kind of agreement, but it's not something that my side is very, very fond of because it's hard to figure out who really needs it and who doesn't. Well, as long as we, until we get the vaccine, we're still here. I mean, you all have seen me emphasize wearing a mask and practice social distancing since May, everywhere I go. And this vaccine is not going to go away till we kill it. So that's job one. we've already allocated an enormous amount of money toward testing, treatment, and vaccines. We may need to do more in the next rescue package because ultimately you got to kill the vaccine before we get back to normal. There's no other way to get back to normal. You can keep pumping money into the economy forever, and it won't solve the problem until we kill the virus. Having said that, there are other sectors that need help, and I outlined what I think is appropriate, but I don't get to make the final decision. We have to deal with the Democrats. And what I'm saying is, I think now that the election's over, the need is there, and we need to sit down and work this out. And state and local could end up being a part of it. I'd like to see it done a little more skillfully than simply providing borrowed money for everyone, regardless of their need. Yeah. Well, Morgan, you know, it depends on state law as to how they do this. Some states, I think, have adopted a system that strikes me as kind of absurd. I mean, there are a couple of states that literally send out ballots to everybody on the voter rolls. They do that in Washington, D.C. I know people in Washington who live in rental apartments who've received ballots from addressed to 6 different people who used to live there at some point. To me, that guarantees the opportunity for fraud. Most states don't do that. There's some verification process that you are who you are. And so it's not a massive problem, but there are systems states can adopt. For example, California has what's called ballot harvesting. So you can go around and collect ballots from people and turn it in for them. Unfortunately, most states don't do that. And my personal view is it's none of the federal government's business how states decide to conduct their elections. I mean, I think that has been for 230 years a state decision, and we have to adapt to how states choose to do it. Perfectly okay to complain about a particular system if you don't like it, but ultimately, if there's a dispute over it, it's going to be resolved in court. Well, the results are accepted when you get finality in 50 separate states. And the finality decision is up to states. And we're waiting, whether I'm going to be the majority leader or not, the outcome of a state decision in North Carolina, a state decision in Maine, a state decision in Michigan, and a state decision in Georgia. Do I feel what? Well, in March and April, we came together and passed the CARES Act without a single dissenting vote. So it's not impossible for us to get together. As I've said repeatedly, I think the closer we got to the election, the more that interfered with getting an outcome. The election is over. We don't know for sure all the outcomes, but hopefully we will by next week when we go back in session. And we need to sit down and talk to each other like we did back in March and April and address the problem. And I'm confident we will, no matter who ends up running the government, no matter who's in the White House, no matter who's, I think we know the Democrats are going to run the House, and no matter who runs the Senate. It's time to overcome all that and get results. You're trying to get me to answer a question. Well, obviously, I'd a lot rather be the majority leader than the minority leader. If it appears that, as of today, at this moment, that we are in a pretty good position in North Carolina and Maine. We may, as I said earlier, know later in the day how that turns out. If my math is correct, if we win in North Carolina and Maine, I'm still the offensive coordinator. But we may know by the end of the day. And then there are others that are still to play out. One or two specials in Georgia and the Michigan Senate race. We have a fabulous candidate up there who's got a real shot. Well, I sure hope so. You know, Ruth Bader Ginsburg said last year, not Mr. McConnell, Ruth Bader Ginsburg said last year, 9 is the right number. Talk about destabilizing the courts. Imagine if you started, every time the power shifted, you started adding new judges. They had no credibility at all. It's a terrible idea. And I was disappointed in my old friend Joe Biden for not just ruling it out, which surprised me, frankly. I think the president ran a heck of a race. Everybody was writing him off, but he had no shot. And he went out and literally worked himself to death for the last 2 months with multiple rallies every day and turned it into a cliffhanger against everybody's expectation. So it was an extraordinary campaign. I think it also helped us in our Senate races. The places, with the exception of Maine, the places where we have the best chance of winning, are places where it looks like he won. So I'm going to take one more, and I think we've probably covered it. Yeah. Yeah, I never comment about security. As you all know, that goes with this position, and I've had it since I was whipped almost 20 years ago. And my wife, who goes with this position of cabinet members. But beyond that, we don't comment on security issues. Okay, thanks everyone.
Using our new ballot marking devices. They found it easy to use, appreciated the security of a paper ballot, and liked seeing their ballots tabulated by the scanner. This election puts to rest the debates inflamed by those in our state, or not in our state, who have looked to sow doubt about our systems, and those who have wrongly claimed there's a lack of access to voting. Elections matter. Completing this general election is a huge hurdle crossed, but it's far from the end of our work. We will have, immediately starting today, working towards certifying this election and then preparing for state and local runoff elections on December 1st, and then the September Senate runoff election between Senator Loeffler and Raphael Warnock on January 5th. This will require a monumental effort because we have a short window to get out absentee ballots for the December runoff to give voters time to return them. My team has sent reminders to counties to get all, let me repeat, all of our results counted today. Every legal vote will count. And I know that many of you probably have some questions. Justin.
You're a supporter of President Trump, but you're also a cease-time elected official. What do you say to people who hear the president speak
Well, I want everyone to know, the sound of my voice, that every legal vote in Georgia will count. And right now we have about 200,000 ballots that are left to be counted. With the absentee ballot process, counties worked on scanning those, as many as they could. And then there are also about 40 to 50,000 early votes that need to be counted. Every legal vote will be counted.
So is the president correct then?
We're saying that every legal ballot will be counted in Georgia because that's our process and we follow state law.
I hear you say that you want counting to be done today. Is that realistic in counties with tens of thousands of outstanding absentee ballots? Counties run elections. I don't know if they'll get it done today. I know you said you communicated with the counties asking them to complete it today, but is that actually possible?
We're pushing really hard for that. If we can get that down, if we don't get it there, but we get the number so small that then there's no question of who actually the winner is, I think that'll be helpful. Really remove a lot of those questions that people might have. Yes, ma'am.
When will you make a decision about which race to do a risk limiting audit on?
That'll be something I'll get with our election team, and we'll get that out as soon as we have that information.
There's word that USPS was supposed to do a sweep of their facilities, make sure all the absentee ballots had been delivered, and that in some places that didn't take place. Do you know if that happened here in Georgia? Is that any concern?
Well, it would always be a concern. We want to make sure everything gets to us. Don't have anything specific on that, but that's why we also instituted the absentee ballot drop boxes. Our concern actually was that voters would wait too long and then it'd be too late to mail, and that's why we had the absentee ballot drop boxes, which was very well received by voters in Georgia.
So you don't have the word that took place?
Yeah, I don't have anything specific, but as soon as we do, we'll circle back and get that information out to you.
One quick follow-up about...
Can I get with this, ma'am? Well, it's several counties, but we know that DeKalb, Fulton, Forsyth, even has 7,000 voters. So it's really, it's something when you have such a large number of absentee voters and then you have some early votes, it's really multiple counties, and we're just knocking those down one at a time.
Sir, can you speak to the process of absentee ballots? I know this is kind of a moving target. Today, for those of you who are wondering why they're not done, can you speak to the delay and difficulties of absentee ballots?
Yeah. So the state election board gave the counties the authority that they could begin the process of scanning the absentee ballots, which is very helpful. So I know that down in Muskogee County and Richmond County, they were really current with everything they had received, but then all of a sudden we also had additional ballots come in on Monday and then Tuesday, so they were being dropped in. So they had to scan those. And so they'll be getting that as soon as they can, but it is a 2-page ballot. It just takes longer to get those ready for the scanning process. Is there another question back there? Well, I know that right now that we have, my numbers here were 52 to 54,000 in DeKalb. Right now we have 74,000 approximately Fulton County absentees and 43,000 early votes in Fulton County. And I have about 7,000 right now in Forsyth. We can get you the entire list because just make sure we include all the counties.
Secretary, can you walk through what the rest of the election process looks like from the military ballots coming in to the audit to the certification process? What's the next part before we can say Georgia's certified?
Well, the next process obviously will be to make sure we get all the ballots counted, then also the UOCAVA, the overseas military ballots, to get those in and have them incorporated in the vote totals. We're going to begin the risk limiting audit process later this week, which is really important. So many people are not aware of that. This is the first time we're doing a statewide audit. And so what that will really give you, first of all, we have, I think, a higher confidence of voters. I know there's a lot of information out there, a lot of misinformation out there, and some of it's just lack of knowledge, and we understand that. And that's why the risk limiting audit, what that will do, will verify results. So if there's a race that was, say, reported a 51-49, when we do the audit, then we can verify what the result is, and we have over a 90% confidence level. That gives people additional assurance. I think also having that paper ballot, voters were very comfortable. That just gave them that comfort feeling that looked at before they cast their ballot, and that's a good thing also. Then by Friday, November 13th, we then will have the certification. So nothing gets certified until after we do the risk limiting audit.
And then with the presidential race probably going to be so close, and even some down ballot races that may be
Well, if there's a race that was in 0.5%, it is your right as the candidate that is close but not over the top that you could ask for a recount. So we actually could have a request for, say, a state representative, county commission race, or any race that's within 0.5%, and we'll just wait till we get every ballot counted, and that's why it's very important we follow through the process. It'll be actually pulling out, running those through, and then it'll be actually seeing where that brings us, and then you're looking at the words that are on the ballot at some point.
Mr. Secretary, can you explain what you know about what's happening in Gwinnett County? Apparently they're having some issues with scanning, or they may have to rescan thousands of ballots.
Well, if they do, then they'll follow through that. That's the advantage of having the verifiable paper ballot, that you can rescan that. But that's why if some of the ballots do kick out. And the reason they kick out is if they don't fill out the ballot correctly, or they put an X, or they circle a name. That's why we have the adjudication panels of a Republican, Democrat, and then the election official, to have 3 sets of eyes on there to verify that. So we want at least a 2-1 adjudication vote on each ballot, so we can make sure that we capture the correct voter intent.
If there are legal challenges made to votes cast before 7 o'clock yesterday, absentee ballots, will your office and the state defend those ballots against legal challenges?
Yeah, we want to make sure that we follow state law. We are always going to look at what is the state law, and that's why Ryan Germany, our legal counsel, can answer any legal questions you have. But we want to make sure the law is very clear, and we follow the state law, and we don't believe that judges should legislate.
Get a quick assessment from you of the timing of this taking into account. Is this taking longer than you expected to take, and why?
Oh no, it's really going much quicker, and that's why we're really pleased with the state election board allowing us to scan that. If you look at some of these states, this morning is when they actually opened up their absentee ballot boxes, and that's when they started actually the process of separating out the absentee ballots. That's a very extensive process, verifying the signature and going through there, separating it out. We have saved days and days. You're going to be waiting a long time in some of these states, much to many people's consternation, because we understand it's a close election.
You're saying this is right on schedule?
Yeah, we're doing fine, and we're really pleased with. We'll be off everyone's radar, and they'll be worried about the states up north.
Your website doesn't keep up with the absentee ballot progress.
Right. Yeah. As it's getting reported, then it'll be just added to that total.
So how do private citizens keep up with that?
And it's just because it's a process that we just keep on adding that, and then eventually, when we have them all done, you'll know that we'll notify or put a note there that these are the final totals for that particular county.
We got time for one more question.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, our for next. Our first one is about rejected ballots. I know we talked about that last week. Now that these are coming in, where are we at the level? You said about 1% last time. Have you heard anything about rejected ballots, and what happened to those ballots?
Well, yes. Last time we actually had about 1%, but of that, probably 0.75% of those rejected ballots were actually received late. So very few of those actually were rejected by the adjudication panel. When they actually looked down at that, all 3 of the folks, or 2 out of the 3 folks, were saying, yeah, they really wanted Mary for this race here. They really wanted Bob for that race there, and that's a good thing. So very little of the actual ones that get through the adjudication panel are being rejected. So thank you very much. As we get more information, we'll get that to you. If you have any legal questions, Ryan Germany's here, and we're going to get these results out to you as soon as we can. Thank you very much.
I just did a selfie that went out on direct. I forgot you turned the camera on.
Is it
Apparently I took a selfie. Did I tell you this?
What's that?
I took a selfie here and I forgot the camera was running and went out on direct. It will be like all over the world, all over the internet. My daughter and wife always take selfies everywhere they go. They've been nagging me to send them some selfies, so. So everyone still thinks it's funny, so I told you that. I blamed it on you, I couldn't hold it flat on. This is hilarious. I mean, I saw them doing this. I'm sure, yeah, and there's no one in them. Okay. That's the ultimate thing that they don't judge it. It's not right. I don't know. I like this little thing. I like this sort of like walk around the movie. They said the guy that so I kind of know two people probably in the same place at the same time.
मेरा
Yeah, absolutely. That's not a problem.
I mean, she actually said it. We don't eat. Yeah.
I don't like the back.
Yeah. Well, I'm normally up by 1:32, just kind of checking my phone anyway, so I'll be right back. Okay, cool, thanks.
What? No, you made it work. How was everything back there? I got that. I was really in front of it, so you were struggling. I know. I did feel really bad because I was calling you. I felt like I was alone at the report. I had
double what we normally do, more than that. I will be sending out a link to the Zoom video after this, as soon as it renders, for those of you who need it. Otherwise, you can also watch it on Wisconsin Eye. Well, why don't we get started?
Great. Great. Well, good morning, everyone. My name is Megan Wolf. I'm the administrator of the Wisconsin Elections Commission and the state of Wisconsin's chief election official. So,
success. Even in the face of unprecedented challenges, his administration has prevailed and delivered results for the American people. That is why our country needs President Trump for 4 more years and will continue to fight for his re-election until all the votes legally cast are counted. This election has seen record voter turnout that America has not seen in a century, and the American people must be assured that it is both fair and transparent. Now, President Trump's monumental help has expanded the House Republican coalition. From Miami to Minnesota to California. From every single pundit, even from the Cook Report to upping the number of losses they said the Republicans would have up to 20 just this week. Or if you listen to Speaker Pelosi or Sherry Bustos, who runs the DCCC, or the Majority Leader Steny Hoyer, they all said it was double digits. Steny even upped it to 15 this week alone that they would win. They were all wrong. Sherry Bustos is still barely holding on to her own seat. So here are the facts that our conference could incredibly be proud of. As of right now, we have 7 GOP pickups. We also have 11 outstanding races that I feel very confident that will continue to grow and win. We'll likely have an additional 14 to 19 Republican women. This will break the record for the most Republican women coming in at any one time. We'll double the number, and we'll set a record for the most women ever in the Republican Party. We'll likely be adding 6 to 9 minorities to our conference, from Florida to New Mexico to Texas, to Oklahoma to California. I'm also proud of our candidates and our members, and I especially want to thank our NRCC chair, Tom Emmer. Not only did he win all those special elections that he played in throughout the year. Remember, before we went into the election last night, by the time of being sworn in last, we had more Republicans and fewer Democrats, and we just continued to add to it. Now, I've heard for months from the pollsters and the media about how Republicans were going to lose more seats and cling to shrinking coalitions. We expanded this party that reflects America, that looks like America, and thanks. I think the rejection that we saw last night from the Democrats was that America does not want to be a socialist nation. I think the other rejection that we saw, we watched the Democrats promise if they would be given the power to have the majority, that they would act different, that they would solve problems, and they wasted their majority. So we look forward to continuing to work for the American public, our commitment to America, that we will renew, rebuild, and restore this nation is what our commitment is and will be. I don't know at the end of the day what will happen in the Democratic Conference. I don't know at the end of the day. I know the vote on the floor is difficult for Speaker. I know there was a number of people who did not vote for her last time, and as our numbers continue to grow, I think at the end of the day, no matter where we end up, that we'll be able to have a very big say or even run the floor when it comes to policy. With that, let me open up for questions. Yes, ma'am.
Have you spoken to the president? How is he feeling? Do you have any expectations?
Talk to the president. The president feels good. I think when you look at a lot of these, one thing I will say last night, I have no statistical data of others. I think a lot of the networks probably called Arizona too soon when I'm looking at what the data that's coming back. I would put Arizona back in the column of undecided right now. I think he looks very good in Pennsylvania. Michigan, I think we can watch, is going to come very close, but I think the president has an opportunity to win that. I think at the end of the day, the president will be elected for 4 more years. Yes?
Last night, his votes were still being counted. The president said, this is a fraud on the American public. This is an embarrassment to our country. Do you think the president should be sowing doubt about the integrity of our elections?
Your questions never change. No, I know. Your questions never change.
That's what he said last night.
Okay. Now I'll give you my answer.
Should he be sowing doubt?
Your questions never change. I think that what the president wants to see is that every legal vote gets counted, and that's what we're walking through right now.
He also said they should stop counting votes. I mean, a lot of races, House races, they're still counting votes. Do you agree with the president? Should they stop counting votes, even ones that were cast before the deadline?
Again, your questions never change. So let me go through what the president said and what the president meant in the question. What the president wants to make sure is that every legal vote is counted, that people vote up until Election Day, not the days after as others would have. That's what the president refers to. I don't think people should be able to vote today, and I would think every other American would feel that exact same way. And that's exactly what the president was expressing. I know you want to try to express something different to it. I know you'll be upset if the president wins re-election again, but the American people have a voice. I know the pollsters were wrong, just like they were wrong 4 years ago. This is what a republic and a democracy is about. And we want to make sure it's legal, it's fair, and that every legal vote is counted, and that's what we're working towards. But I don't think people should vote after the election, no.
Do you have evidence of that happening?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Will you accept the election results once they are certified from the remaining states that we don't have yet?
Yes. Yes, ma'am.
That he is confident that the Republicans are going to take over the House. Are you confident of that?
Well, I'm very confident we continue to grow our majority. Much different than what every pundit had said, that we would lose on an average of 15 to 20 seats. Well, we know that's not true. We know that we continue to grow. Already 7 seats with another 11 that we're winning right now. So we'll see our majority continue to grow, and we'll see where this all ends up. But we thank the American public for their participation. We thank them for participating in this campaign, and now it's the time to govern as we finish out making sure every legal vote is counted, and that the campaign is fair, and the election will be shown by all Americans. Thank you very much, and God bless.
Any evidence of voter fraud?
So what I do is
It's been that way for a couple of years.
Exactly. So what I do, but to his point, what I'll do is if somebody calls and they're like, hey, we want to do X, Y, or Z, I'll send them 2 pages. I'll send them the front of the publication, the first page, and I'll send them the language that's on page like 168 or something like that, and say if something happens, give them this, and it has a footnote in the bottom that says, you know, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, I saw someone who kicked off the sidewalk this morning. I was out.
Yeah.
Supreme Court.
Yeah.
Hey, Ryan, can I
Yes.
get that sound test?
Sure.
House Radio TV 109876543221 12345678910. Kevin McCarthy 12345678910. Good, Bob?
Yeah, what's funny is we don't do the Supreme Court either.
Oh,
Yeah,
really?
they kind of have their own. I wish I knew a lot more about the Supreme Court though, because we do get a lot of questions. Yeah.
Hey, Harbaugh, Harvard went to take shit.
Over there? For better or worse?
It's their shit.
Okay.
I don't put implicit judgment on it.
But is it favorable or not?
No, as long as you know what to expect.
Right.
You know, if things aren't arbitrary, you know.
Sure, right.
And when they seated Gorsuch, I went in to do the class picture, and the justices were seated in the room in their robes, and Gorsuch came running down the room. He hadn't zipped up his robe yet, and he had is it Denver Colts?
Broncos.
Denver Broncos. Yeah, he had a Denver Broncos shirt on underneath, and he's running, and I relayed that information to our print reporter, who put it in the story. And then, so the next time we had the last time we
had a class photo after seating Kavanaugh. We all had to sign the Applewhite memorandum not to report anything that you see.
Right.
I said, "Are you kidding me? This is the Supreme Court. This is where you uphold the First Amendment."
Did they,
You know.
did they do one for Barrett?
I said, "This is like Trump. It's like what do you want? It's like a non-disclosure agreement."
Yeah, I wonder if they're actually going to do one, since, 6 feet apart and whatnot. It's going to look like an awkward photo.
Yeah.
I don't even know if the drapes is big enough for all of them to be apart.
Yeah, their official guy came from the House. He was a House photographer. He's been over there maybe 2 or 3 years now. Maybe more than that. 4 years. He was always very mild, meek, when he was over here. Very nice guy. Not like your Senate officials. Their attitude was ungodly over there. I'll never forget. I had just started in the gallery, and I was outside for, I think it was like, St. Patrick's Day. And so, right, exactly. So I literally, I was standing kind of like this, and I'm not the smallest frame out there. But I was, on purpose, like I was standing up in the pen. I was saving a space for the pool, the White House pool. It was going to come running out. So I'm standing there, and I can tell, like, she's getting closer to me, closer to me, closer to me. Like, is he going to move? Is he going to stand there the whole time? You know, rather than just being like, hey, what's the story? Blah, blah, blah. Like, she didn't say anything. And then we got fairly close to go time, and she got real sneaky. She said, well, I'm with the Senate photographer, or I'm with the Senate officials. And I was like, good, I'm on the House Radio TV guy. Nice to meet you. You're on the House side. And of course, she didn't take too kindly to that. And then she goes, well, you're very standing in a wide stance. She's like, can you move? And I was like, no. I was like, I have a purpose standing, because the moment I move is the moment you're going to move in. And I was like, and I need this space.
They booted us from our, when we worked out seating, the coverage for Barrett hearing.
Yeah.
At the last minute, Senate official photographer came in. They want their space.
Yeah.
So I think they were kind of confined to just that one spot, though. So.
Sorry.
Yeah.
You know.
I think what I appreciate about the House photographers, what they've started to do is they've started coming early. And they've started just sitting with us. And I'm like, okay, fine, whatever. You know, as opposed to rolling in late and being, like you said, that's mine. It's like,
If you're,
not really.
I mean, if you're the official something or other, you can work from anywhere you want to.
Right.
So I take the very few spaces we have.
That's one thing. These guys. What's up?
What's up, man?
They always, like, when we do something for the room, they wouldn't always, like, take, like, the Senate. They would always, like,
What's up, Keenan? How's it going? Thanks for coming in. Yeah.
Not gonna have any trouble out of you today, are we?
I don't think so.
Okay. He's in the group.
What's up? Yeah.
Good afternoon. I know you couldn't hear me last time, since we were socially distanced and I was just tested. I'll take the mask off. Okay. You got the long lens. President Trump had a very strong night last night. His vision for our country has expanded our party. The Republican coalition is bigger, more diverse, and more energetic than ever before. That is because of President Trump. His efforts in reaching out to every demographic has positively changed the future of the GOP. More Americans voted for President Trump this year than his historic 2016 win. In fact, it looks like he'll have more votes than Obama had in 2008. There's a simple reason for this. President Trump has led our country to historic success. Even in the face of unprecedented challenges, his administration has prevailed and delivered results for the American people. That is why our country needs President Trump for 4 more years and will continue to fight for his re-election until all the votes legally cast are counted. This election has seen record voter turnout that America has not seen in a century, and the American people must be assured that it is both fair and transparent. Now, President Trump's monumental help has expanded the House Republican coalition. From Miami to Minnesota to California. From every single pundit, even from the Cook Report to upping the number of losses they said the Republicans would have up to 20 just this week. Or if you listen to Speaker Pelosi or Sherry Bustos, who runs the DCCC, or the Majority Leader, Steny Hoyer, they all said it was double digits. Steny even upped it to 15 this week alone that they would win. They were all wrong. Sherry Bustos is still barely holding on to her own seat. So here are the facts that our conference could incredibly be proud of. As of right now, we have 7 GOP pickups. We also have 11 outstanding races that I feel very confident that will continue to grow and win. We'll likely have an additional 14 to 19 Republican women. This will break the record for the most Republican women coming in at any one time. We'll double the number, and we'll set a record for the most women ever in the Republican Party. We'll likely be adding 6 to 9 minorities to our conference, from Florida to New Mexico to Texas, to Oklahoma to California. I'm also proud of our candidates and our members, and I especially want to thank our NRCC chair, Tom Emmer. Not only did he win all those special elections that he played in throughout the year. Remember, before we went into the election last night, by the time of being sworn in last, we had more Republicans and fewer Democrats, and we just continued to add to it. Now, I've heard for months from the pollsters and the media about how Republicans were going to lose more seats and cling to shrinking coalitions. We expanded this party that reflects America, that looks like America, and thanks. I think the rejection that we saw last night from the Democrats was that America does not want to be a socialist nation. I think the other rejection that we saw, we watched the Democrats promise if they would be given the power to have the majority, that they would act different, that they would solve problems, and they wasted their majority. So we look forward to continuing to work for the American public, our commitment to America, that we will renew, rebuild, and restore this nation is what our commitment is and will be. I don't know at the end of the day what will happen in the Democratic Conference. I don't know at the end of the day. I know the vote on the floor is difficult for Speaker. I know there was a number of people who did not vote for her last time, and as our numbers continue to grow, I think at the end of the day, no matter where we end up, that we'll be able to have a very big say or even run the floor when it comes to policy. With that, let me open up for questions. Yes, ma'am.
Have you spoken to the president? How is he feeling? Do you have any expectations?
Talk to the president feels good. I think when you look at a lot of these, one thing I will say last night, I have no statistical data of others. I think a lot of the networks probably called Arizona too soon when I'm looking at what the data that's coming back. I would put Arizona back in the column of undecided right now. I think he looks very good in Pennsylvania. Michigan, I think we can watch, is going to come very close, but I think the president has an opportunity to win that. I think at the end of the day, the president will be elected for 4 more years. Yes?
Last night's votes were still being counted. The president said, this is a fraud on the American public. This is an embarrassment to our country. Do you think the president should be sowing doubt about the integrity of our elections?
Your questions never change. No, I know. Your questions never change.
That's what he said last night.
Okay. Now I'll give you my answer.
Should he be sowing doubt?
Your questions never change. I think that what the president wants to see is that every legal vote gets counted, and that's what we're walking through right now.
He also said they should stop counting votes. I mean, a lot of races, House races, they're still counting votes. Do you agree with the president? Should they stop counting votes, even ones that were cast before the deadline?
Again, your questions never change. So let me go through what the president said and what the president meant in the question. What the president wants to make sure is that every legal vote is counted, that people vote up until Election Day, not the days after as others would have. That's what the president refers to. I don't think people should be able to vote today. And I would think every other American would feel that exact same way. That's exactly what the president was expressing. I know you want to try to express something different to it. I know you'll be upset if the president wins re-election again, but the American people have a voice. I know the pollsters were wrong, just like they were wrong 4 years ago. This is what a republic and a democracy is about. And we want to make sure it's legal, it's fair, and that every legal vote is counted, and that's what we're working towards. But I don't think people should vote after the election, no.
Do you have evidence of that happening?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Will you accept the election results once they are certified from the remaining states that we don't have yet?
Yes. Yes, ma'am.
The president has mentioned that he is confident that the Republicans are going to take over the House. Are you confident of that?
Well, I'm very confident we continue to grow our majority. Much different than what every pundit had said, that we would lose on an average of 15 to 20 seats. Well, we know that's not true. We know that we continue to go. Already 7 seats with another 11 that we're winning right now. So we'll see our majority continue to grow, and we'll see where this all ends up. But we thank the American public for their participation. We thank them for participating in this campaign. And now it's a time to govern as we finish out making sure every legal vote is counted and that the campaign is fair and the election will be shown by all Americans. Thank you very much, and God bless.
Any evidence of voter fraud?
To observe as well. Some of those jurisdictions even did things like live streams, so you could watch ballots being counted all day if you wanted to, and all night. And so that's not the short answer, but that is the answer of why you see these large sets of absentees added to the polling place totals at the end of the night or early in the morning.
Okay. We've only got until about noon, so next is Emily Fannin. Keep your questions short so we can get in as many as possible.
Hi, yes, thanks Megan for doing this again. Real quick, can you describe to us what a recount will look like? Do they recount ballots at a central location or each polling location again?
Thank you for that question. So, you know, we've had practice in this. So in 2016, we were the only state to complete a presidential recount as well. And that recount process is actually conducted at the county level. So we have 1,850 municipalities, but we have 72 counties, and the recount happens at the county level. So the county is the one that, you know, today is the deadline for those municipalities to start routing the materials to the counties. The counties will have those materials, and then in the event of a recount, they're the ones that organize it. A lot of times they'll bring in help from their local election officials to help conduct that recount, but it does happen at our 72 counties.
All right, next is Ryan Curry.
Hi, good morning. My question is about voter turnouts. Have you been able to assess their turnout this year and yesterday compared to what it was in 2016? And how did that affect, I guess, the counting process for today and the process going forward?
Yeah, thank you for that question too, because also an important clarification. So another provision in state law is that participation, so actually going through and recording participation for an election, the local election officials have 30 days to complete that process. And so we don't have the official numbers in terms of turnout or voter registrations on election day until after that 30 days is completed and after the results have been certified. So, you know, you can get an idea by going to each of those 72 counties and looking at the numbers that are posted there from each of the 1,850 jurisdictions to find out what the pool is of voters who participated as part of those unofficial results. But again, they're unofficial. And so I know some of our individual jurisdictions did report in terms of their turnout that they were seeing in their jurisdictions. And it certainly looks like, if we're looking at those unofficial results, that we had higher turnout in this election than we did in the 2016 presidential.
The only thing that I would add is that if you want to do a quick and dirty figure out of what turnout was, look up the Associated Press's numbers for each of the candidates, add them together, and divide that number by the state's voting age population, which you can find on our statistics webpage. So I mean that's how I did it when I was a reporter. That's how I've done calculations. We haven't had a chance to do it, but obviously turnout is much higher this year than it has been in the past. Ellie Kaufman is next.
Hi, Megan. 2 fast questions. That town that you mentioned that has less than 300 voters left to count, is that the town of Willow?
It is. Okay. Yeah, the town of Willow in Richland County.
Thank you. And then my second question is, so just to clarify, if you're requesting a recount, you request, I just pulled it up from a 2018 thing you guys had put online. It says you can request No later than 5 p.m. on the first business day following the day on which the WEC receives the last County Board of Canvassers statement. So would that mean December 2nd?
No, that's too early. I mean, it's too late.
Okay.
It's after we get the last, after the county, we get the last county's reports in, and they have to have us, their deadline to get them to us is November 17th. We usually get them sooner than that.
Okay. So sometime in like, not this week, essentially, sometime around the 17th.
I think that's probably fair. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Next, let's see, where we go here. Phil Rogers.
Yes, hi, Megan, thank you. I'm in Chicago. Can you hear me?
I can.
Would you clarify, only because I'm in a different state and I want to make sure I understand your system. All of your mail-in ballots had to be in by yesterday, and I assume they are. So can you just clarify, have they all been processed now? Is some continuing counting still going on? Can you just kind of take me through, and maybe if you know any numbers?
Yeah, so all of the ballots had to be received by 8 p.m. yesterday to the place where they are to be counted in order to be counted, or a voter had to be in line by 8 o'clock and cast their ballot at the polls on election day. But yeah, there's no late return allowed in the state of Wisconsin. So if ballots were received after 8 p.m. last night, they cannot be counted. The only ballots that still need to be counted is potentially in that small township of less than 300, and also provisional ballots. So if there's any provisional ballots out there, those voters do have until Friday to bring their photo ID to their clerk's office and to have their ballot counted. But other than that, we believe that all of the absentees and all the ballots from yesterday's election have been counted.
Okay, thank you.
Next is Naomi Knowles.
Yes, thank you for taking my question. Have you guys been receiving calls from the public asking to check their ballot status or with questions about the process that needed clarification?
We have been receiving calls from voters, certainly asking us, trying to verify if their ballot was received or counted. It does get a little tricky. We made some changes to the myvote.wi.gov website so that voters can continue to see their tracker for their absentee ballot. But participation, where we can actually say your ballot was counted. Again, our local election officials by law have 30 days to record that participation. So they have 30 days to go through the poll book and record, each person that participated. They have 30 days to go through each of those absentee ballots and make sure that they're entered in as being received and counted. If somebody's absentee ballot was rejected, so let's say at the polls, they decided that the certificate wasn't sufficient and they had to reject that ballot, they would also record that in the statewide system. So voters won't be able to see their participation until 30 days after the election. Some may be sooner. Some of our jurisdictions, that have more resources may be able to start doing that data entry right away. But for others, they may take closer to that full 30 days allowed under statute. So we have certainly been trying to message that to voters. We know how important it is that voters want to know if their ballot was counted. But each of our clerks are working diligently